Well, it looks like the Flames have finally started their off-season desires and wish lists.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Nick Zararis. Nick, how are you doing today?
We got news. We spent the entire month of May complaining that the Flames hadn't done anything, and then I texted you today while you were at work. I go, "What time do you want to record?" Lots of news, and I had to explain. Oh, yeah, like half of the team doesn't want to sign extensions. They had their AHL coach get poached by the Capitals. It was a busy news day for the Flames.
Yeah, it was like the one day at work where I just didn't look at my phone, and I guess I have to do that more often because the Flames will give us.
Wait till August to start doing that when we really need things to talk about.
And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. So download the Gametime app and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. So obviously tonight we are going to be talking about the latest trade rumors, making, cases for both sides. And of course, where do we go from here? Because we have the GM, we have our coach, we have a special advisor to the general manager too. And now we have pieces, kind of important pieces wanting to leave.
It's all so complicated. I've had a handful of people text me throughout the course of the day, what's going on with the Flames? I thought they got rid of Daryl Sutter. Why does everyone still want to leave? And, that's a fair question. That is a fair question that, hey, we talked to you guys at exit interviews. You said we need to change the coach, and we took your word for it. We said, hey, we're gonna make you guys part of this conversation, and we value what you have to say. Then what does that say? What does that say that, hey, we still don't want to be here even after the organization extended an olive branch, made a good gesture, that key pieces are either on the fence or outright set. And we have to take, you got to take some of this with a grain of salt. This is also
Frankie boy.
It's Frankie meatballs, and some of this is leverage. In all honesty, these guys saying, "Well, I don't think I want to be here," is make me a better offer. In some respect, that's the other part of this that you have to be able to read the tea leaves of with these reports. Is this information is out there for a reason. These agents or players went to Frank specifically because Frank will tweet anything you tell him. If you are in the loop, Frank will report anything, and he will make you sound good at whatever you're trying to do, because Frank likes his access. Frank is one of the few people who is relatively plugged in because he can get information out there he's arguably the most consistent when it comes to his digital footprint in terms of just getting content out every day, always trying to be involved in making news happen as a newsmaker. So yeah, if you tell him, hey, I'm Mikael Backlund's agent, I don't think he wants to stay, that's going to get tweeted within a minute and a half of that text message coming. And that might be hey, I want to see what happens here, but I want you guys to make a real effort towards A, giving me a better offer than what you've currently offered, and B, I want the team to be good next year, because I think that solves a lot of these issues. I know we've seen that's kind of been what's reportedly the truth, what's out there as far as priorities for Elias Lindholm, where the offer's out there. From what we understand, the Flames have offered him the full 8 years between $8.5 and $9 million per year. That's a more than fair offer. If he wants it, take it. If not, the Flames did everything they could to keep him. And it's like we said about Johnny Gaudreau the other day on Tuesday, where if you make a fair offer and the player decides to go somewhere else, okay, I can live with that as a fan of a team, because they did everything they could. There was nothing they were going to be able to do to change that player's mind.
Yeah, and it's not for like a lack of effort.
Exactly.
From Craig Conroy and everything. And the perfect example of that is how the Canucks treated Tyler Toffoli at the end, how they didn't offer him a contract extension because time ran out. Those were direct words from the front office, and that's not happening here. If anything, the Flames are, playing or getting ahead of themselves a little bit so they don't run out of time. And at the same time, like, you kind of have to it's like playing Jenga a little bit. Like you have
Oh
to
yeah.
carefully select which piece is coming down. Otherwise, you can still maneuver things and be okay. And then one wrong move and it's Jover.
We talked about this on Tuesday. We said Elias Lindholm is the biggest domino because you take away the team's best forward and their most important forward. Suddenly, what else you do with the rest of the roster doesn't really matter as much. That's really the undercurrent of all of this. And I said this to Hunter, who texted me as soon as I want to say the Toffoli tweet when he because I was wasting time today, so I was walking up to my sister's job and walking through the park and scrolling, and I saw Hunter text me, "Did you see what Frank tweeted?" I go, "No." He goes, "Toffoli too," and I reply, "The Flames are getting forced into making the right decision," because that's realistically what we've talked about this to death. You can say you want to win a Stanley Cup. Are you actually going to win a Stanley Cup? Yes, exactly. Are your chances of winning a Stanley Cup better as being the 7 or the 8 seed, getting in and trying to limp your way through, get all kinds of magic, smoke and mirrors to go your way? Or are you better off resetting? Because the Flames are not going to be able to hard reset because they can't get rid of Huberdeau, they can't get rid of Kadri, they can't get rid of Weegar. You wouldn't get rid of Rasmus Anderson. You probably will ride out the rest of Markstrom's contract now because you're not going to be as competitive. But they're getting forced into doing the right thing. They're not going to give Tyler Toffoli a crazy extension if he wants to go somewhere else. Backlund, you're going to get some decent assets back for. Noah Hannafin, you'll get okay assets back for. And if those 4 guys all are on their way out, then it almost doesn't make sense to keep Elias Lindholm because at that point, you're better off getting as much back as you can, starting over, giving your GM, your coach, and all the guys you bring in as prospects or guys you take flyers on to try and rehabilitate them, get their skills back, give them as much runway as possible. And that's something I was talking about the other day with someone in regards to the Huskers, the coach, who he said, why not Mitch Love? And I said, well, I honestly, I think it's more because it's a transitional thing. I think if the Flames had already kind of established who they were going to build their next group of guys around, I think you could have had a real argument for it to be Mitch Love. Like if it were 2 years from now and it was the same situation, 100%, because more than likely the Flames will be fully in a rebuild by then. He would be their Marty St. Louis. He would be their Spencer Carberry, whichever rebuild centric coach you want to put in that spot, because the Flames are they're in that in between. And their hand's going to get forced here by these players. And again, this might all be leverage. They might end up keeping 2 or 3 of these 5 pending UFAs. And then all of this is moot. But from what we know right now, okay, let's start talking about this from the big picture, drop down. What does this mean for the next 5 to 10 years? Because that's really what this offseason is about. Yeah, you have to.
You can't just look at this 2-year window and say this is it, like we're rebuilding. Why couldn't have we done it last year? We could have been in the race for Bedard. You have to look forward. There's no point in looking back.
You can't change anything.
No.
And now that was something someone else had texted me. He goes, well, do you think this is part of why Brad left? And I agreed completely. I think 100%. Brad knew which way the wind was blowing with all these UFAs. He didn't want to get, even if Darryl was still the coach, he didn't want to get stuck having to manage all these UFAs, wanting to leave, and then having to fix this mess, because this is going to be a mess. They are going to be a bad team if they trade all of these UFAs that want to leave. They're going to be an outright bad team.
So get ready for some potential.
Locked on rebuild. Locked on
rebuild. The Tankathon will be here. But before we move on to kind of making cases for best case scenario, worst case scenario, we are going to take a quick break, and I'm going to tell you about one of my favorite sponsors, Gametime. Gametime makes it possible for you to attend any event in your local area, or if you're traveling, any sports game, comedy show, theater, anything like that, at a really good price. You can download the Gametime app and sign up for a free account and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I like it because you do get to see, like your perspective from the seats, and it's the lowest price guaranteed. You get event cancellation protection, and you never know. It's 2023. People flake, things happen. And today you can get tickets. I mean, Heritage Classic tickets just went on sale. So if you need to buy resale tickets, you can head to Gametime, download the Gametime app today, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Terms apply. Again, create an account with Gametime and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out with us today. We're cruising along. We got all the news that we could possibly work with at this time. It's something. It's more than just a breadcrumb.
Yeah, no, we have concrete information. Again, whether or not what the information means, that's a little more open to interpretation. It's why Jess and I keep emphasizing the whole, this is out there for a reason. This might just be a, hey, we want a better offer, otherwise trade us type of ploy, which again, that's what an agent's supposed to do. Get the best offer for their player as humanly possible. That's the goal here. That's your end goal. So we'll see. And we talked about it on Tuesday in terms of who's more valuable as an asset versus a player. Tyler Toffoli definitely at 31 as somebody who is coming off a career year. Noah Hannafin as entirely. And then at that point, if you're trading your best winger or your second best winger, and you're trading one of your best left-handed defensemen, then that argues, hey, okay, maybe we probably should trade Elias Lindholm as opposed to keeping him. But again, we have to go on what we hear, and this is what we hear right now.
Yeah, and like you've said, everything is happening for a reason. If people did, look at Lou Lamoriello. Things don't get out. He might have you contractually obligated to keep quiet and not say anything, but leaks happen, but not in that house. So again, this information is being put out there. Tyler Toffoli and a few of the other players in the mix are represented by CAA Hockey, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, hockey agencies in the NHL. So
and it's important.
We know what they're doing.
And the one point we talked about briefly on Tuesday, but I'll reiterate here. A lot of these guys, you get to unrestricted free agency one time. That is your one chance to get that life-altering, that long-term guaranteed financial stability that you carry the rest of your life and you pass to your kids. It's why I don't begrudge these guys who are looking for the best possible deal, who say, hey, I don't want to live here. I want to go to a better situation. And at least they're being upfront with you. They're not wasting your time. They're being genuine in their messaging. And that matters to some degree because as fans, it can be frustrating. I completely understand people who are like, how come people don't want to stay here? Well, the counterpoint to that is, okay, we'll get people who want to be here. And that's really that is the selling point here for a full-throated rebuild is, okay, these guys don't want to be here. Fine. We'll build it our way with guys who want to be here, who are going to set the tone for what this organization is going to look like going forward. Rebuilds, if you're honest and you are accountable with your rebuild, your fans will buy into it. If you come into the season fully on we're going to stink, we're going to pick in the top 5 of the draft, and we're going to do it a couple times, you buy yourself a lot of runway. If you go a good 3-4 years of being absolutely garbage, then your fans will give you time because they understand. As long as you're transparent with your, hey, we want to start over, we need to kind of get younger, we need to get cheaper. Okay, be honest, and then your fans buy in. Because once you get the buy-in on the rebuild, then it really takes on. It takes on a life of its own because your fans start projecting onto all these prospects and these guys who are the unknown. That's what's good about draft picks and prospects. They can be anything. Everybody can project their hopes and dreams onto these high school age children and expect the moon from them because they don't know anything about them yet. That's the argument for not being a team in that soggy middle. We're like, yeah, if you traded all these guys and you got roster players back, you could hold serve, be where you are right now. But that doesn't make sense to do, in all honesty. You don't want to be the 16th best team, the 15th best team. No. If you're not one of the 5-6 best teams with a real chance of winning the Stanley Cup, you are better being garbage than you are being mediocre. That is the way these leagues with draft lotteries are set up right now.
And, I think a lot of what you said is obviously very true. And I think back to a few years ago now when Chicago wrote that letter to their season ticket holders. Now, listen, I'm not praising Chicago for anything. This is just a nice, front-facing fan service sort of thing to do. Just telling, hey, we're going to be bad.
Yeah.
But we're doing it so we can win again. Tortorella did it this past fall. Hey, things are bad here. They're going to be bad, but
I'm going to make them worse.
Yeah, he just made him a lot worse, but it's fine. I think that there is something to kind of look forward to.
Yes.
Through being bad.
Absolutely. And like we were just talking about, it's part of getting buy-in. A rebuild allows everybody to get their hopes and dreams up because all it takes is one top 5 draft pick who hits and you can romanticize and dream about being this amazing, impactful player in all these big moments. And like we just said before, all right, guys don't want to be here. Fine. Let's draft guys where this is all they know. If you get drafted there, this is all you know. Let's make this the best landing spot we possibly can, where when we get these kids a year or two out of college or a year or two out of junior hockey, they love it here. We're going to build a culture where everybody wants to be here. You're going to be excited to come to the rink every day.
That's why we talk. New rink.
Exactly. These are the types of these are the uncapped spending things that you can do. There is no cost on culture. You just need the right people. You get the right people in the right positions to make decisions. All of a sudden, things start falling in line. It starts at the top. You got a hard reset. You got a new GM. You got a new coach. You assume that they'll operate under a traditional power structure where you won't have the coach backdooring to the owner behind the GM's back and buying himself insurance against being fired, that type of thing. So we can start at the top. And this is where it comes down to for me. We talk about process versus results. Mm-hmm. You can have good process and bad results, good process, good results. If you are at least doing things that make sense, they're justifiable, you can explain them, you can unpack what didn't work. Like, even if, let's say, they go on a full-throated rebuild and they draft a couple guys and, a handful of them aren't going to hit. Draft picks don't always hit. That's just a guarantee. You draft 7 guys a year. If you have one pick in each round, you probably get 1 to 2 NHLers. You get 3 AHL guys, and then you get 2 or 3 more guys who just never become anything. If you consistently turn out 1, 2 NHL guys for a couple years in a row, you can start to turn over your roster. You can build up your organizational depth. The Flames have a few pieces in Matt Coronado, in Peltier, in Dustin Wolf, who are on the cusp. But you need a lot more than just 2 forwards and a goalie as you look forward to the next iteration of what the Flames are going to look like. They're one of the older teams in the league. They were this past season, I should say. Not a lot of youth in that lineup. And we've heard the messaging from Conroy that, hey, we want to get younger. We want to get more skilled. We want to get faster. Okay, let's do it full. Let's go fully in on it. Let's go fully in on a rebuild and be transparent and be honest with our expectations. Don't do half measures. Half measures is how you get where you want.
Them?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. And you're going to have to sell your owner on this. And that's the hardest part of making this happen is your owner, because your owner can change their mind at any given moment. And you could do a year or 2 of a rebuild, and then you miss the playoffs 2-3 years in a row, and your owner can start to get impatient, like with what happened with the Rangers, where they missed the playoffs 3 years in a row. The GM, coach, and president of hockey operations all got fired. They brought in 2 new guys, and they handicapped themselves. They kneecapped themselves. They took away what was a gradual incline of improvement to try and get as good as they could, as fast as they could. They got 1 playoff run out of it, and now they're kind of stuck in this in-between of, we have a good group, but we don't have a Stanley Cup group. That's where you don't want to be. And that's where the Flames are trying to get to, basically, is we're decent, but we're not going to win the Stanley Cup. And that's what trying to keep these guys longer than they're trying to extend these guys. And if they want to keep Lindholm, I understand. If he wants to stay and they give him that number, I understand why for both sides. It's not going to be good for the long-term trying to get top high draft picks starting over aspect of it. But in terms of the hockey part of it, in terms of we can't just totally. Yeah, the product on the ice. We don't want to gut the team where we're just atrocious to watch. We need some good players for our young guys to play with. I understand that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, No half measures, man. Look what the Blackhawks did. They were icing lineups with 5 AHL defensemen most nights this year. It was Seth Jones and 5 AHL defensemen.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting. And
Oh, yeah.
we are going to wrap up the show here in just a second and really talk about what's next and how the Flames could move forward and the right decision subjectively to make. But before we do that, let me demonstrate or show you the product here. You're not watching on YouTube. I'm holding up a pair of Bird Dog shorts. They are gray with a teal liner. They are some of the most comfortable shorts on the market. They are sweat resistant. You can wear them anywhere, whether it's a casual day at the park playing frisbees with your friends or dress it up with a polo at the barbecue. They are fantastic because they use an anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. And when you get the liner, there's no chafing. So there's a lot of good things there for why you should want some Bird Dogs. And you can order yourself a pair of Bird Dogs at birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL. And when you use code LockedOnNHL, you get a free tumbler, a free, wonderful Yeti-style tumbler with every purchase with code LockedOnNHL. Birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL. It's on the screen. You're going to want your Bird Dogs. Thank you, everyone, so much for hanging out with us today as we make our way through the summer. We are approaching the draft and free agency, and then the part of the summer where we're assigning Taylor Swift songs to each player. But before we can dive into all that, we got to talk about what's next. Where do they go from here?
So the interesting thing is there's always teams that are, for a lack of a better term, that every other team loots the corpse of. That's effectively what the next 2 weeks will be. Is Connor Hellebuyck going to get moved from the draft before the draft? That's probably the biggest individual piece that's available at this moment. Because from what I understand, the Sharks kind of want to trade Erik Karlsson, but don't want to retain a lot of his money. So that probably won't happen even though it probably should, in all honesty. And then you'll start talking about the Flames in regards to Lindholm. I think it probably behooves the Flames to try and trade Lindholm sooner rather than later, because, if you trade it, the sooner you trade him, the more you can probably get. If you try and make a trade happen on draft night, you have the added benefit of the clock working in your favor, where you put teams on the clock and say, hey, we got to move them. If you want them, your clock's running. Yeah, that's an aspect of it why there's more action at the draft, because you can kind of corner people and pressure them into being like, hey, I got someone else on the other line here across the room. If you want, if you don't tell me what you're doing, I'll pick up the phone. I'll see what else is out there. Those are the two biggest plot lines for me going into the draft: is how aggressive are the Flames going to be, and Connor Hellebuyck. I think Connor Hellebuyck is going to be interesting to see. I know the Devils are out there as one of the potential landing spots, which that would make my life more challenging, because the Devils are a goalie away from being a scary team. But in regards to the Flames and what's next, I think you'll really see a full-throated effort from the Flames to try and get Lindholm figured out one way or the other. Yeah. Because if they know even if he's in this ambiguous, like, I kind of want to see how next season goes, they probably should just trade him anyway. They realistically probably should just trade him anyway. And then it becomes, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to do Lindholm and our draft pick for somebody else's better draft pick? Are we going to do like Lindholm and 16th overall for like 9th overall, 8th overall to a team that's decent, but that's not atrocious, but that's not good? That's what it comes down to for me. I mean, there are teams that Columbus is too high. Columbus is not trading third overall.
They're not trading that third overall pick.
That third overall pick is going to be a great player. That third overall pick is going to be Adam Fantilli. It could be Michikov. It could be Leo Carlsson. There are really good players at the top end of this draft. It won't be third overall. I could see maybe Pittsburgh. I could see maybe Seattle. I could see one of those teams that wants that needs another guy. I know the Bruins have been floated, especially because Krejci and Bergeron aren't reportedly coming back. So if both of them are definitely leaving, I could see the need for Lindholm. I could see the need for Lindholm in Boston. I know Carolina has been floated as wanting him back
to his roots.
Yeah, it's complicated. We have to see. That's the one thing about all of this is it's a game of, I don't know, what do 32 people play? It's a 32 person game. You can't play poker with 32 people. There's not enough cards in the deck. But that's effectively what it is. That's effectively what it is. 32 people. It's like a Call of Duty lobby. There's 32 people running around trying to kill each other. That's effectively what the next 2 weeks are, where everybody and anybody is rumored to be interested in everything. It's always a buyer's market until it's a seller's market. And we'll see. There's not a lot of great assets in free agency this year. Like, that's going to make the trade market more lively, at least to me, is that there's nobody particularly great hitting UFA. The best players hitting UFA don't inspire a whole lot of confidence. Like, is Michael Bunting really moving the needle that much for these people? Like, you'd be a lot better off trading for a Tyler Toffoli than you would be trying to sign Michael Bunting, at least in my opinion. And it's complicated. It really is. But like I've been saying, at least, I think the Flames gotta, if they really want to do this right, they gotta start over. They effectively need to start over. No more half measures. The half measures are what got them here in the first place.
Right. Do you think that Conroy is going to be working 2 phones at the draft? Like,
I love those memes. I love those memes. Those memes are always funny. Excuse me. The draft floor always provides very funny pictures where you have like 3 grown men gossiping in a circle, and you have Frank or Elliot or Darren tweeting, Kyle Dubas, Lou Lamoriello, and Doug Wilson are all standing in a circle right now, huddled up. Okay, that's very helpful. That's telling me a whole lot.
They could be talking about their boats and,
they could be talking about the lake. They could be talking about where they're going to dinner afterwards. Like, it's great. Like, it's amusing. I do find it amusing. Like the draft a couple years ago where the cell service was out in like all of Canada and they had to use landlines and runners. The entire night, where they were running around with pieces of paper on the draft floor like it was the dark ages. Like, the draft is always entertaining, and I'm sure next week we'll talk a little bit more. Hopefully the Flames have a few more draft picks they've acquired in the meantime so that we have more to talk about. But yeah, today, I don't want to call it a watershed day because in the grand scheme of things, it's better for the Flames to kind of start over as opposed to forcing it to try and stay competitive. And if you had a time machine, you would go tell Brad, get 5 first-round picks for Matthew Tkachuk as opposed to roster players. But I digress.
Yeah, no. And, I think that it's very easy to look at things with hindsight. It's always because there's too many moving parts, and there will still be moving parts as we move forward. You just have to make the most of what's available, and maybe you do tear it down and start over, because what else could the Flames possibly do to get better?
And they can't fully tear it down because they have a few guys who are immovable, so the team won't be god awful. I mean, Jonathan Huberdeau is better than any player the Blackhawks put on the ice last year. He's better than any player. All right, he'd be the second best player on the Coyotes. Clayton Keller's probably better than him. But when you think about these really awful teams, the Flames have too much talent to be that awful. They've got Rasmus Anderson and Mackenzie Weegar. Those are 2 really good defensemen. You've got Huberdeau, you've got Kadri, and that's really
Mangiapane.
Yeah, and Mangiapane. Mangiapane's an interesting one. He's a bounce back candidate where you play him more minutes because you're not going to have anybody else. You play him with Huberdeau and you find a center to throw in the middle of them. And then we talk about it. But until then, we'll wait and see. That's all we can do.
Well, we will be here for you every single day. Pushing you through the off season, and the Flames are finally giving us something to work with. So make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, and of course, free 99 on YouTube as well. Come hang out in the comments. We love hearing from you guys, and just be smart, be safe. Follow us on Twitter at Jessica Mosto, at Nick Zararis. Nick, any parting words?
make sure you're looking at the right people's Twitter accounts, like put notifications on for the insiders' actual accounts, especially now that some of them don't have check marks to keep track of who is who. That's the best advice I have for this time of year. Make sure you verify your sources.
Yeah. Simple as that. And we will see you tomorrow.